Today my topic is beloved community, longing to belong. There's a lot of talk these days about how can churches, centers, spiritual centers stay relevant in today's world. And beloved community is one of the ways that we're always relevant. People always need that sense of community, a place where they belong. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And the I want to start with a story of a woman named Karen Wilson. She's now a CSL minister, but she wrote the wonderful daily guides for this month. And she tells a story. She was 37 when she first walked into a center for spiritual living. It was up in Kelowna, Canada. It was a snowy morning, but she awoke with this determination to visit this community that she had heard about. There was something going on there that she wanted to experience for herself. She was married, had one child, but her husband wasn't supportive, so she went alone. And yet she felt called to show up. It was a really strong calling. And so when she got to her car, the battery was dead. So nothing could deter her this morning. So she called a friend and had them drive her over to the center. The friend didn't walk in, but she went by herself. And when she walked in, she didn't know anyone. She believed she was an outsider, right? So the room was small and the people were friendly. The talk was good. And Karen felt comfortable enough to return the next Sunday and the Sunday after that. But on both occasions, she left as soon as the service was over. She left without speaking to anyone or even waiting to shake hands with the minister. She just scooted right out of there, right? But on the third Sunday, the talk moved Karen to tears. While she didn't know anyone, she suddenly felt that she knew the soul of everyone as expressed in that sacred space. And in that awareness, Karen cracked open and the tears kept running down her face. Unable to move, she watched as the volunteers began packing up all of the chairs, and she was still sitting there. So one of the members walked over to her, approached her, and gently asked, "How are you, dear?" Karen felt embarrassed, yet seen. And here it was, right in front of her, what she had been seeking: simple kindness and speaking heart to heart. For the first time in years, Karen felt like she belonged. She had been invited in. She saw that even while she was crying, even while she was at her most vulnerable, she belonged. Karen knew that she was home. Her false sense of separation had vanished in the midst of community. Ernest Holmes writes, "What would happen if we could convert the energy of fear to faith, the energy of doubt and uncertainty into a feeling of belonging to the universe and being safe in it? Would not the original artist himself go forth into new creation through us, as us?" So the human need to belonging is an innate sense of being. Without belonging, we die, we wither, we experience a failure to thrive. Human infants depend completely on their parents for survival. And it's not just physical care. Infants need to be held and rocked and sung to, right? They need to know that their caregivers will respond to their cries. I don't know if you remember, but I remember in 1989, after Romania's communist dictator was overthrown, they discovered 160,000 orphans in their orphanages, and the infants lay in their beds, strangely silent, except when they were fed, changed, or bathed on a fixed schedule. They weren't touched. They had learned that no one would respond to their cries, and so there was no reason to cry. And the longer they remained institutionalized, the more likely they were to grow up with impaired brain development and mental health issues. The age of 2 would seem to be an important time frame. If they went into foster care or found new parents before they were 2, it made all the difference in their development. So, but for everyone, one of the strongest needs of our soul is for community, to belong. In the reading by Thomas More in his book, Care of Soul, this morning, he talks about some people seek a community or of uniformity or people that are like-minded. We think that should be community, but true community, belonging, what the soul yearns for, according to Thomas More, is about attachment, variety in personality, intimacy rather than superficiality. It's about truly relating to individuals, to nature, to society, to the world as a whole. You see, when we're part of a community, it pulls out something in us. It touches a resonant frequency within us. And so there's a soul to soul communication, right? It creates a space for spirit to come in. So true communities have diversity and they welcome and accept people just as they are, and they give them freedom to be themselves and not be just like everyone else. Loneliness is a common complaint in our society. The recent collective pandemic experience has only exacerbated our feelings of separation. Sometimes people hold back, clinging to their loneliness while they wait for a community to seek them out. To be seen and recognized for who they are is their deep longing. But the spiritual truth is that we already belong by the simple fact that we're here. We're each made of God stuff that belongs with all the rest of the God stuff, which is all of creation, right? But if we already belong, then why don't we feel that way? Some people saying, I don't belong here is a way to protect themselves from the fear of rejection, right? I don't belong to this spiritual community, to this family, to this city, this country. There's somebody else's community. But this also is a way of continuing that delusion of separation, which only exists in our mind. We isolate ourselves to avoid that pain of anticipated rejection, right? We say, I reject you before you have the chance to reject me. You know any people like that? I know a few. And it's really sad to, when you reach out to them, they don't want a part of it. They don't believe, they're too fearful to even risk possibly being loved. So getting out of that mind frame can really be scary because it requires that we at least try to give up that delusion of separation, to create a crack for someone to enter our inner sanctum. We need to lean into our innate urge to belong, which calls us to be both vulnerable and transparent. It's like when the pain of staying where we are is less than the pain and fear of going forward. Now, Thomas More also says, belonging is an active verb, something we do positively. Now, it's not just about going out and joining organizations and, showing up, doing service and stuff, but it's about actively learning to relate to people while we're a part of that organization, and to love and to feel compassion for others. In Science of Mind, we say that we reap what we sow. We talk about you have to be a friend to have a friend, right? Now, by definition, the beloved community is a sacred, safe, and intimate place to evolve spiritually. We create that warm, welcoming, and loving space for each other and for newcomers to be seen and accepted just as they are. And that's a rare gift for some people. So each member feels that they belong, they are loved. And for us coming into the community, it's our own actions of loving service that create the bonds that tie us together with other community members. Our loving, caring, and acceptance of others contributes to the spiritual community and circles back to us as our sense of belonging. Now, the beloved community and the Science of Mind principles provide the structure for the community, wherein the individuals can experience peace and wholeness. It's something that people can feel when they're with us, just like Reverend Karen was the first time she was at a Center for Spiritual Living. And I know it's something that many of our members, including me, felt the first time we walked into a CSL center, right? Members can express their wholeness through their individual expression and through the collective expression of oneness, right? And that loving support. Now, spiritual transformation, it can be a pretty messy process as we kind of experiment with moving out of our comfort zone. And some of the things that we try go great, and we have a great aha. And then there's things that we try and we fall flat on our face. But within a spiritual community, we feel the freedom to be vulnerable and supported, right? And being in a community where we are accepted just as we are, wherever we are on that path of life, we have the courage to accept ourselves, just to be comfortable in our own skin. We're often our greatest critic, you know. Brene Brown has said, because truly belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. Right? So we have to take off our mask and be ourselves, you know, with all of our zits and strengths and our weaknesses. It's all part of us. We're whole human beings. And we feel safe when our conversations dive beneath the everyday world to explore our connection with the divine, with the infinite invisible. In this exploration, we open up to those infinite possibilities of being fully alive and belonging to something greater than ourselves. Now, wholeness is both an individual and collective experience. Jim Lockhart, in his book, The Beloved Community, said, when we come into community, we are recognizing the soul's call to commune with others and actualizing more of our potential to love and to be of deep service to creation. The Science of Mind global vision that we have for the Centers for Spiritual Living, it's creating a world that works for everyone. And more particularly, we say we envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where this kinship with all of life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. So to fulfill that vision, we each have our own unique gifts that we share with the world. And Ernest Holmes, in his book, Observations, a little pamphlet, he says, this is truly a divine inheritance, but at the same time, we must live together in a community of interests. So my good becomes your good and your good becomes mine, right? So we learn to give and to receive. We learn that seeing someone else's joy is as good as our own joy. It lifts us up together, right? It's like 1 and 1 is more than 2. You know, Jesus said we're more, whenever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I also. Right? And we feel that power and presence of spirit with us in the midst of us. It calls us to do something higher, more than we would do for ourselves sometimes. There's one of the many great stories coming out of Ukraine the last year. There was a Ukrainian man that was hiding in a Mariupol bomb shelter. He spotted a car with keys in the ignition, and he was out looking for food one day. So he gathered his family in the car and he drove to the relatively safer town of Vinnytsia in Western Ukraine. Right? And while he was driving, he found a phone number in the glove compartment. And so he called the car's owner. Nervously, he said, I'm sorry I stole your car, but I'm saving my family. The man on the other end replied, thank God you and your family are safe. Don't worry, I have 4 cars. I took my family out in my SUV, but before I left, I refueled my other 3 cars and I left them in different places with the keys in and the phone number in the glove compartment. And from all 3 other cars, I received a call back. Once there's peace, I hope we'll see each other. Stay safe. You know, we rise when we're part of a community, when we support each other. It is that divine love and inspiration where we know that it's all God and it's all good, and we share all that we have with our community. Jean Vanier says, one of the marvelous things about community is that it enables us to welcome and help people in a way we couldn't as individuals, right? And he's talking about the way that we can include people that are different than us when we're part of a group. There's sometimes it's easier to do it in a bigger group. So it might feel really awkward one-on-one, but in a bigger group, we have that support of each other. There seems to be a little more give and take space to be there, right? Now, the reason he talks about this is that he is a Canadian and he founded a nonprofit called Lush, let's see, Lush, I think that's how you say it in French. And it means the ark, after Noah's ark, right? And he started it in 1964. At the time, he was living in France, and he invited two men that were disabled to live with him in his home in France. He saw the conditions they were living in the institution where they lived, and it was just horrible. And so he thought they should have a better life. And so he had them live with him in his home, and they became a family, right? So L'Arche has grown since then to be an international federation of 153 communities spread over 38 countries and 5 continents, where people with intellectual disabilities live with people who assist them in homes or apartments with no more than 12 people at home, right? Sometimes it's a few, sometimes up to 12. But by living together in community, the residents can relate to each other in many more ways than caregiver and patient. And today, L'Arche continues to transform lives and model a more human society where every life is of equal value. When I was, as many of you know, I'm a breast cancer survivor. And when I was going through that experience, there were 60 people that were on my prayer team, and I kept a blog, kept them updated on what was going on. And they were people from, this was my community, but it was people from my family, ministers and practitioners in training, because I was teaching Prac 2 that year, friends. But I never felt like I belonged more than that year when I was going through that cancer experience. I was loved and taken care of. I had always been dedicated to giving to others, but this year, all I could do was receive with gratitude. I felt like I belonged. I felt like I was appreciated and loved just as I was. And that's part of what gave me the strength to make it through, right? And so now I enjoy, and I think it's important to give back to people that are going through similar experiences, whatever it is, right? It's that divine love that empowers us all. So what I'd like to do, as we bring this together to a conclusion of the longing to belong, I'd like you to, we're going to acknowledge that we belong to this spiritual community. What I'd like you to do is put your hand over your heart and say the words out loud, I belong. Ready? I belong. Now I'd like you to, if you're in gallery view, turn to one of your neighbors on here. Maybe you'll catch eye to eye contact, but say, I am grateful you are here. You belong. I am grateful you are here. You belong. And to another, I am grateful you are here. You belong. And as you go through your day today, extend that feeling outwards, to anyone that you meet. Stop them and say, I'm grateful you are here. You belong. We belong together. So let's take this to prayer. So in this stillness of the fresh snow or the rain falling, it is the divine replenishing the world, providing moisture, creating silence, creating a time when we can go within and remember who we are. That we are each a part of that one life that is God, that has created all of life. And that very breath within our being is the breath of the divine. Our whole being is a part of the divine. We are together with all people and all things a part of the divine. That is our collective source. And so as we remember this, we are called to belong to something greater than us. And so we find our spiritual community. We are grateful to be a part of this spiritual community, Center for Spiritual Living, Tahoe-Truckee. And we give ourselves and our time and talent and treasure. We share our lives, we share our love. And as we do, we open up the channel for more of that infinite love, that divine love to flow through us and as us. And our hearts are healed and soothed. Our bodies are healed. Every cell vibrates with life and energy and joy and love and life itself. It is so good to be here. It is so good to be alive. It is so good to be part of this beloved spiritual community. And so from this belonging, it gives us a foundation to live our lives, to know that we are loved, appreciated, and accepted just as we are. It gives us that inner peace and wholeness that opens up everything. Wherever we go, we know that we belong there because everywhere God is present, everywhere we bring this inner spiritual community with us. It is a part of our DNA. It is part of who we are. And so we gladly share it with others. We open our arms to embrace everyone. We create a place where every individual that walks into our center feels loved and at home. And we bring it with us as we go out into the world, and we share that feeling that there is something going on that gives us that inner strength and peace and joy. It's unshakable. That's something that as others are seeking, they discover it by meeting us and joining our community, by the various rituals and meetings that we undertake together. And so it is that divine life and love itself that guides us to evolve as a center, to create a place that continues to be relevant in today's world, to create that sacred, beloved community. And so we let go and let God be the truth of our being in this moment and in all things in our lives every day. And most of all, in our center. It is the power and presence of the one that is the truth of who we are, individually and as our beloved community. I am so grateful to know this truth, to feel it in the very depths of my being, and to know it, just know it, that this is who we are. This is what we have been searching for, and we have discovered it right here and now. We are experiencing it in all of its fullness. We are living life in all of its fullness. And so I release these words, knowing that they are just describing what has already happened and is continuing to unfold in greater and greater measure every day. I say thank you, Father, Mother, God. And together we say, and so it is.